oftentimes when you break no contact, you lose the vision of who you want to be. You lose the vision of the woman that's confident, that no longer has to rely on him for validation, for self-worth. You lose the version of you that wants to stand up in power, showing up in a healthy way for her kids, showing up in a healthy way for her work, showing up in a healthy way for the business that you run. And you go back and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm worthless. So you broke no contact. What now? You were at the place where you were doing so well. Like you were at the place where you were no contact. You blocked him on everything. And then he finally got through. Or you were at the place and you are no contact and you saw something on social media from a friend of his that showed you him and it triggered you in the moment and you felt bad and you reached out. You had him blocked and you went in and you unblocked him on your phone and you contacted him. You called him, you got back together, you talked to him, all these different things. You broke no contact. You might be at the place today where you have broken no contact and you feel the shame and the guilt from it. You feel the frustration of like, I just know I did something that is not helpful for my healing. I just know I did something and I actually am beating myself up about it. You're like hating on yourself right here, right now. I need you to understand this happens a lot. Inside of going no contact with a narcissist is not always as cut and dried. One time you're done. Sometimes people have to go no contact multiple times before it actually sticks. Even people that come to Raw Motivations, they're like, hey, I don't know if I can commit to a program because I don't know if I can go no contact. I'm like, I don't even ask you to do that because I have to help build you up in your confidence and certainty. Because if you do not have the confidence for you yourself to not have to have its validation or need for support or whatever it might be, you're going to go back. You're going to open up the door. So rather you keep the door open while we actually heal you internally and then get to a place where you can feel like you can go no contact. Because this process of no contact gets so difficult for people to stay completely no communication at all. But oftentimes when this happens, you'll get to a place where you'll be no contact a day, a month, a week, and then you break it. When you break it, you move into your own shame cycle. You move into this piece of like, hey, I did something wrong. And then it starts beating you up. You start thinking, what do I need to do to actually like fix it? How do I need to get better? Well, maybe I'll just go no contact again. You go no contact again. Then you feel awful because you're no contact because all the emotions, the feelings are all jacked up because of the relationship. Then you go back to having contact. And so it's just this cycle that keeps happening over and over and over again. It confuses, it frustrates you, it pisses you off, it beats yourself up. There's multiple things that happen. Now, this thing about no contact, there's oftentimes when people have this piece of no contact, they view themselves starting over. And while that might be true for some people, there's also a piece of if you're actually learning and growing, developing yourself, it's not a start over. Consider for a moment that it is a race. We're going through a race of life, a marathon of what's happening. And you're sprinting from one section to the other. You're running and just going through life. And you start at the start line. And then you finish at the finish line. Inside of this relationship, it's almost like if you think of like a game one of your kids plays or a game that you grew up playing, it almost be like this idea of like, oh, the car went off the road. Let me pick up the car and put it back on the road. And like it's kind of like reset. Let me reset. But when you reset back at the start line. And when you reset back at your start line, you start beating yourself up because you're like, I've already been here before. I know what's going on. Why was I so stupid? I can't believe I didn't see this. Why didn't I figure this out? And you start doing the narcissist's job for him. Like you start beating yourself up over and over and over and over again. This happens all the time. People get to a place where they're no contact. They break the no contact. And then they view the claw come down of like, let me pick you up, put you back at the start line. Now you can start all over again. And they beat themselves up. I want you to consider if you're in the process of growing, developing, and transforming your life, it is not a pick you up and put you back at the start line. You've already seen the abuse. You've already known what's going on. You've already experienced the shit inside the relationship. So when you get picked up, it's not that you're getting picked up and put back on the start line. You're in the same exact spot. Let me explain. Let's use the race analogy a little bit more. But let's say you're in a car. You're race car, you're driving, you're on this track. And you get to a place and you have a flat tire. Inside that flat tire, we could take you all the way back to the very beginning of the race, or we could just change the tire. See the difference? The difference is when you're inside a toxic relationship and you break the no contact piece, you go back, you interact. All of this feels like you're starting over from fresh. You've already experienced everything already. You just have to remember it. You just have to understand it. You just have to see, okay, this is what's going on. It's the same exact thing. It's the same exact MO. Wait a second. Let me figure this out. Okay, so this is going to happen. This is going to pop up. When this happens, I need you to understand this is the piece of you getting a flat tire. Because as you've been watching content, as you've been involved in growth, as you've been involved in transformation, you start to have the tools to be free. But when you do this, when you break no contact, you start to beat yourself up thinking, well, I didn't heal. I haven't figured this out. I'm worthless. You start to beat yourself up so much. Instead, get out of the car, change the tire, and get back on the no contact train. Yeah, we're just bleeding examples altogether. It's fine. Because I want you to keep moving forward. Too many of you are going to go no contact. You're going to break no contact. And as a result, you're not going to get back on no contact. You're going to be like, well, I couldn't do that, so I might as well give up. Do you realize nothing in this world would be invented if everybody gave up the first time and it failed? People keep trying because they know the end result. Here's the thing is it's hard when you don't know the end result. When you can't actually lock eyes with the version of you down the road that you actually want. How do you show up differently when you're outside the toxicity? How does your mind get clear? How do you start focusing on you? How do you start developing a different version of who you are and how you show up down the road? If you can't find that, if you can't start to lock in of what you want, of the direction you want to go, it becomes super hard. When you're inside the battleground of your mind on a day-to-day basis and you break that no contact. Because oftentimes when you break no contact, you lose the vision of who you want to be. You lose the vision of the woman that's confident, that no longer has to rely on him for validation, for self-worth. You lose the version of you that wants to stand up in power, showing up in a healthy way for her kids, showing up in a healthy way for her work, showing up in a healthy way for the business that you run, and you go back and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm worthless. No, you just have to fix the tire. You have to get back on track. You have to get back on the place where you go back to no contact. Now, people hate it when I talk about no contact with kids because they get all riled up. I can't do this because I have kids. I can show you a ton of people that have done it with kids. Consider for a moment that it's not that you don't have the resources. It's that right now you might not be resourceful enough. It's going to piss some people off, and that's okay. Now, I get it. There's circumstances, there's states, there's laws, there's countries that you cannot go 1,000% no contact. I get it. But I can also give you a lot of examples of people that are completely no contact, only communicating through lawyers, only communicating through third party. But there's no contact. There's at the very minimum, at least no direct contact. You can start doing this in multiple ways. You can go no contact and you can slowly fade it in. No longer going to see you in person. Has to be over the phone. No longer to FaceTime. Has to be phone calls. No longer to phone call. It has to be text. No longer going to text. It has to be email. No longer going to email. It has to go through a court-approved app. No longer going to go through a court-approved app. It has to go through our attorneys, our lawyers. No longer going to go through them. It has to go through a third party. Whatever it might be. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this, a lot of different ways that you can work on this, but you have to be able to understand that going no contact is necessary for the healing process. But you might not be at the place where you can do that just yet. You might be thinking, hey, I still have to work on this. I still have to focus on this. I still have to figure this out, because every time you go no contact, you go back. You open up the door for him once again, and as a result, you start to beat yourself up over and over and over again. It's time to stop beating yourself up, because this piece of no contact does help you heal. But until you heal certain parts of you, you're going to keep opening the door for him over and over and over again. So understand, when you break this no contact, you're not picked up and moved to the start line and say, hey, you got to start from fresh. You have no clue what you're doing. You have to start all over again. You already have some tools. Now it's time to actually use them. Get out of the car, get out your tools, and start fixing the tires so you can get back on track, so you can get back on no contact, so you can reset those boundaries. Just because you open the door doesn't mean the door needs to stay open. You can close it again. You can lock it. You can move forward in your life. It's difficult because a lot of times people will look and believe and feel and see and beat yourself up over and over and over again because you were no contact, then you broke it. If you need permission, today's your day of permission, saying, hey, stop beating yourself up for the no contact, for breaking it, and just get back to no contact. Stop worrying about him and his feelings. He doesn't care about yours. Start focusing on you, your growth, your development, because otherwise he's going to keep using and abusing you, treating you like the vending machine, and keep depleting you over and over and over, like we learned about the other day. The whole goal inside of here is I just want to give you an opportunity of saying, hey, when you go no contact and then you break no contact and you fall into this pit of wanting to beat yourself up and have this shame and have this guilt, just take a pause and understand it's okay. Get back to the place where you fix the tire and get back on the road. If you're interested in help with this, of learning how you can build yourself up mentally and emotionally, internally, with your confidence, with your certainty, with your clarity, please reach out. Go to rawmotivationscoaching.com and I have a video there that I want to show you to help you understand how I help liberate women from toxic relationships. Because if we don't help you with connecting your head and your heart, there'll be this disconnect where logically you're like, shouldn't be with them. And emotionally like, oh, but I want him. I'm just going to go back and forth. The cognitive dissonance is going to be very difficult for you to heal. Some of you need to heal to a certain level and a certain degree in order to go no contact and actually have the confidence to maintain it. Some of you might be able to go no contact today and actually stick with it. And then you need the healing on top of that. Either way, I try to work with different people to help you move forward. But if you try to go no contact multiple times and it hasn't worked, that's not going to be my main push or my main focus. I don't want you to just go no contact. I want you to focus on you. And as you focus on you, you build your confidence and certainty. One of the folks that was in our Thriver community, one thing that happened is he came to her door. Several months after they'd broken up, they came to her door and she told me later, she was like, I didn't answer the door. Turned the lights off and I just sat there. I just waited for him to leave. She was like, the difference this time was I didn't open the door, not because I knew it was wrong or that it was bad. She's like, I didn't open the door because I didn't even want to. I didn't have the feeling. I didn't have the emotion of even wanting to open the door. That's my goal, is to get you to the place that your confidence, your certainty, your clarity of who you are is so strong that when he comes knocking on your door, it doesn't even matter. Because you've grown. You've moved forward so much that the person who he is doesn't even matter, doesn't even connect, doesn't even affect the person that you're becoming.